We're gonna get started, so if you guys can quiet down. So yeah, today we're gonna be talking about role plays in Britain. So this is what DECA is all about, so make sure to pay close attention. But yeah, so if you scan the QR code, you can get started.
Yeah.
Are there any open seats there?
I don't think
There's
so.
one here and there's one
To
here.
start, we're just gonna play a little video that will get you introduced to a role play, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that.
About role plays.
So what exactly is a role play? A role play is a DECA event where you're given a real life business scenario with objectives, and you have to create a presentation concerning that scenario. For example, the scenario might be about a hotel that's struggling to attract millennials. Your job would be to address that problem and come up with solutions. Your presentation will require creative solutions and practical outcomes, which is something you should take into consideration when coming up with them. You're also given performance indicators to help guide your presentation, and it's also so that the judges know what to look and grade for. A performance indicator is a key concept, and depending on what event you're doing, you will have about 4 to 5. The first type of event is a principal event, and this is for first-year members. You will have 1 role play and 1 exam, 10 minutes to prepare and 10 minutes to present. The 10 minutes to present includes the amount of time you want to leave for the judge to ask questions. We might have around 2 to 3 questions, so that's something to take note of. The 4 event options are business administration, finance, hospitality, and marketing. So the main difference between principal events and the other 2 events I'll talk about later is that these are very much broad in general. So it's not going to be super specific and niche, it's going to be more broad. The next event is the individual series event. And this is for returning members only. You'll have 2 role plays and 1 exam, 10 minutes to prepare and 10 minutes to present. And there are also many more event options compared to principals. For example, there's human resource management, marketing communications, etc. services.
Events that you'll do later, so we're gonna ignore that.
So now I'm going to be guiding you through a sample role play. So this is a principal role play for business management and administration. And on the upper right-hand corner, you can see the instructional area. And in this case, it's customer relations. So that's something, it's an underlying theme that's going to be present throughout the case study, throughout the performance indicators, and throughout your presentation. So on the bottom, you can see the performance indicators, and there are 4 of them. For example, it's explain the nature of positive customer relations. And what you want to do with the performance indicators is you want to answer the questions. So if it says explain the nature of, you want to explain the nature of positive customer relations. And you also want to tie that in to your event situation. So this is what your situation is going to look like. So what it's going to contain is it's going to contain your role. So for example, here, I'm the administrative manager at Green Water Treatment Plant. It's also going to say what role your judge is playing. So here, the judge is the receptionist. So the last thing it's going to tell you is the purpose of the presentation. So here, it's to demonstrate positive customer relations while answering phone calls made to the wrong office. So throughout your presentation, you want to keep this in mind. Over here, we have the judge's evaluation form, and there are 2 things that they judge you on. They judge you on your performance indicators and 21st century skills. So as far as performance indicators go, this is why it's super important. As you can see, there are 4 performance indicators, and there are 4 numbers, all with the performance indicator questions. So they're looking for if you explain the nature of positive customer relations. So make sure you attack those performance indicators really well, because that's the majority of your role play score. As far as 21st century skills go, you want to make sure you communicate clearly, have a lot of creativity with your solutions, answer the questions really well, and also reason effectively. Don't just come up with some random stuff. Make it make some sense. So thank you for listening. I hope that you guys have a better understanding of what a role play is. We'll have more videos later about some tips and getting into more specifics. So it's just for you guys to get a general idea of what a role play is. Hi, I'm Kayla, and today I'm going to
hopefully that kind of introduced you to what to expect throughout this presentation. But now I'm going to teach you exactly how you're going to prepare for your role play as well as complete it. So starting off with role play structure, there are three main things that you're going to do within those 10 minutes. So the first is your introduction, and everyone is going to have a different introduction depending on like what you like to do. So in your introduction, you want to introduce yourself and the role, and then you also want to clarify the judge's role. So the introduction that I usually do, and I pretty much do this for like every single role play, is I'll be like, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Kayla, and I am my role. And today I'll be talking to you, and then you'll say the judge's role, about whatever the objective of the role play is. So this just really sets the scene, and it gets the judge excited to hear what you're going to talk about. For the introduction, it's really important that you stay like in character. So remember that you are not playing yourself, you are playing the person that the role play is assigning you. And then once you complete your introduction, you can kind of transition into the key KPIs. And keep in mind the introduction can be just talking about what the scenario is talking about. And then you can say, and now I'd like to talk about a few things that I think are really important. And then you can start your KPIs. So it's important that you have like nice transitions to help your presentation flow. So for the KPIs, I mentioned them in the video, but these are your key performance indicators. And these are what the judge is going to judge your presentation on. So when you start talking about your key performance indicators, you want to clearly state each one, and then you can elaborate them using the DECA method. So when I say clearly state them, make sure you like pretty much repeat the key performance indicator word for word, because you have this 10-minute presentation and the judge is really going to look for like if you said the KPI, because then they'll be able to judge you, if that makes sense. And then in order to get maximum points for each key performance indicator, you can use the DECA method, which we'll talk about. And then once you finish all your KPIs, you can move to your conclusion. So this is just basically to tie the whole role play together. An example of when you could do is just be like, thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you like these ideas, and that I really believe that these ideas will help this organization, whatever the objective is. Things like that. You can do it however you like. Everyone does it differently. So yeah, you just want to like briefly summarize your proposal, and then always thank the judge. You want to start your role play with a good introduction and then end it with a really good conclusion, because they're your first and last impressions. Okay, so moving on to the DECA method. This just helps make sure that you are attacking each KPI really effectively, so you can get maximum points. So the first thing that you want to do is describe the KPI.
Yeah. Do you want to suggest, if you guys want to take notes, I suggest you do this. Well, are you going to send out slides? Or?
Yeah, well, you'll be able to access the slides, but if you want to like take notes on things that like maybe weren't said on the slides, definitely, you could do that.
So you know, Mrs. Lynn, I like it when kids take notes because it helps you learn. So if you want to take notes, please do this, because I don't know if you guys know, but Kayla is the queen of role play at our chapter. She gets embarrassed when I say that, but she's performed really well in the role play event. So she's giving you all the tips and tricks, okay?
Yeah, so the D stands for describe your key performance indicator. So what this means is you want to define, this is basically like defining the terms. So if the key performance indicator was like explain the nature of positive customer relations, then you would want to define what positive customer relations are. So positive customer relations is when you have like good relationships with your customers, and then kind of talk about why it's important. So having positive customer relations is really important because it creates repeat clientele. So if they have a really good experience with the company one time, they'll be more likely to visit again. So this is just specific to the role plays that I do. But yeah, you just want to define the terms that are in the key performance indicator, and prepare the judge for what you're about to say next. So once you've defined the terms and introduced the key performance indicator, you can bring up some examples. So examples could be like anything pertaining to that key performance indicator. So continuing on with the one I was talking about, positive customer relations, an example could be of a company that has really great positive customer relations. So you can bring in like real world examples of different companies, and that really sets you apart. Another example that you could do is just like kind of explaining what positive customer relations are. So in this situation of like a hotel, positive customer relations is just greeting the customer like really nicely, and just make sure you're satisfying all their needs and wants. So just any example that you have, it's really great to bring that in, because that can make your judge more interested in what you have to say. And then if you can kind of tell, like those first two are pretty general. So you're talking about the general definition of the terms and like general examples. So that's when C comes in. So C is connected to the prompt. So depending on what your prompt is, you're going to do this differently, but you just want to explain why this KPI is relevant to the scenario as a whole. So how is customer relations featured in the scenario or in this problem that they're having? And you just, a way you can start this is just like, one problem our company is really having is that we are struggling to have good customer relations because blah, blah, blah. And then you can talk about how you want to solve that or why it's important that you solve that. And then you want to go above and beyond. So above and beyond is, I would say, probably the most important thing you can do, because most people have like the same knowledge as you, like they're going to say the same definitions, they might have similar examples. But when you go above and beyond, you're really going to like set yourself apart to the judge. And there's a couple ways that you can go above and beyond. So one could be real world examples. So just taking industry knowledge and incorporating that into your role play. So I talked about in one of the examples, like a business that has really great customer relations. That could be an example of above and beyond. Another above and beyond is like visual. So I'll be talking a little bit more about visuals later, but you can like draw graphs and just different things to supplement what you're talking about. So does anyone have any questions about the DECA method specifically?
You know, do you use this every time you're competing?
Yeah.
Every time.
And when you do it, you don't necessarily have to write out like DECA, but I just like try to make sure, at least even like just a mental note, that I'm doing each of these. Okay, so one way to structure your role play is by using the tic-tac-toe method. Just to clarify, you do not have to use this method. Like everyone organizes their notes and their thoughts differently. But I just found that this is the best for me personally, because you only have 10 minutes. So I find that this really helps me organize my thoughts really quickly. So in the tic-tac-toe method, you're going to have one box for your introduction. So while I'm reading the scenario, I'll just like put the lines on the paper, make it into a little tic-tac-toe shape. And then in the first box for the introduction, I always write down my role, and then I always write down the judge's role. And then I write some like key things I notice about the company, maybe like the problem that they're having. And I always write the goal of the presentation. So you can add that in your intro and then integrate that information, because you want to make it really real. So a good introduction will, say your role, say the judge's role, and then talk about why you're here. What is the purpose of this role play or this meeting with the judge? And then the rest of the boxes are for your key performance indicators. So principals events have 4 key performance indicators. So on the top of each box, I write word for word what the key performance indicator is. And make sure you write this like really fast because you don't have a lot of time. But that's like the first thing that I usually do is just introduction, and then I write each key performance indicator. And then I'll start writing stuff for each one, because one thing I found is if you just take it one by one, you're going to run out of time, and then you're not going to know what the last key performance indicator is, and you just don't have any options. So yeah, introduction, and then write all your key performance indicators. And yeah, the tic-tac-toe method is really helpful, and I will show you an example of what it looks like in real time. So this is
You can dim the light in this one.
yeah.
Can you turn on the light over there, Sam?
So this is just one of a practice role play I did, like with the 10-minute limit. So as you can see, I like wrote the role that I had, the company or the hotel in my case, what the judge's role was, and then just like little notes like about the company that might be important, because I think this one might have been about like prices. So I talked about the current prices, and then like kind of the problem that they're facing. And then I also have like all of the key performance indicators written on the top. It's not very pretty, but it works. And as you can see, like for the first one, I defined like, since the key performance indicator was detail the functions of room service, I like wrote down the definition of room service. And then I gave some examples. So good room service is like clean rooms, you could deliver food. And then I connected it to the scenario by like saying, delivery with room service can make our hotel more efficient, things like that. And then for this next one, as you can see, like I wrote less and less for each one, because like that's how it's going to be when you're in that time limit. So just make sure you just have notes that you can improvise on later. So one thing that I like found is like when you first do your role plays, it can be really hard to like come up with things to say. And it's hard because like I used to just like write down sentences for my role plays, but you just have to like keep it simple, bullet points, write in a way that makes sense to you. So I like use arrows here, and that just like helps me visualize everything. So yeah, you can take like a couple seconds to look at the other ones. But yeah, even for the last one, I only wrote like 3 things, but I was able to expand about them when the presentation came. So yeah, that's an example of what the tic-tac-toe method looks like. But then again, everyone does like organizes their like notes differently. So I'll talk about it later, but you can find a lot of like example role play videos on the internet, and like you'll see just how different everyone's is.
I have a question. How long do you spend on each of the KPIs / introduction?
So I guess for as far as like timing goes, reading the scenario will take about like a minute, and then maybe like all I would say is like have 3 minutes in the end to make visuals. So I guess that leaves like 45 seconds to a minute for each key performance indicator. And then you can spend the last 3 minutes of your time making visuals, doing the above and beyonds, as well as like drafting up a plan if you have one. Yeah. Any other questions about that?
Okay, so you have your notes available to you when you're doing the role play, right?
No. So when you do your role, so I guess I'll like go through how your role play is going to work. So you enter the room when you're going to sit in a waiting area, and then they're going to call you up, and then you're going to go sit at this table, and they're going to hand you the scenario sheet, and then they're also going to hand you like a couple pieces of paper, and you'll have a pencil. So once that timer starts, that's like the first time you're going to have anything written on the paper. So within those 10 minutes, you just have to like do the introduction, write all your KPIs, and then leave time at the end for like visuals and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, I just meant like this paper, you do get to have it.
Oh yeah, they give you the paper.
How would you show the visuals? Like, do you get a separate paper to show that?
You just have like a lot of paper. So for visuals, like yeah, you could just use one sheet to like organize your notes, and then another sheet for like maybe drawing a graph, and then as many sheets as you want, honestly.
I think one team said they got like 10 pieces of paper just for visuals. So it was just a lot. I don't think it was 10, but it was like quite a lot.
And then later on, if you have time in presentation, I actually have pictures of what the conference setting looks like if you want. And it's actually a role play event. So if you want, I can show these pictures.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Okay. So any more questions about that? So here are just some role play do's and don'ts. So do create visuals through drawings or tables. Some ideas, like usually before my role play, I have an idea of like what visuals I want to do. So a really easy one is just having like a graph. So just find like a simple graph, and then you like draw a line, and then say like through this plan we'll be able to gain more guests or something like that. Another example of a visual could be a SWOT analysis. So you can just like make a like graph of like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That one's pretty unique. And then depending on the scenario that you get, you can like be even more creative. So I know for one of them, it was one of my role plays was about like social media. So I drafted up like a sample post. So like I wrote the like a fake account name, then I drew a little like sample of what the post could look like. So just things like that. We'll talk more about like visuals maybe in future meetings to give you more ideas. But that's like a brief idea of what you're expected for that. And then you do want to exercise creativity with your proposed plans. So this is like so important. The more creative that you are, the better you're going to do in competition. And like, I remember I was talking to one of my previous mentors and she told me this, and like the next conference I did a lot better, because when you really think about it, like these judges are seeing so many people. Like for principals events, they're going to be seeing like 20 to 30 people. So a lot of them might be saying similar things, but if you have like a really unique idea, maybe like a really unique social media campaign or a really unique promotion plan, things like that, that is what's going to set you apart, and the judges will like remember you. And then you also want to maintain eye contact and the conversation. So this is for the 21st century skills. So in the video that I showed, you're judged on your key performance indicators and then your 21st century skills. So you just want to maintain your eye contact and be really engaging, like maybe use your hands. But if you like really need to refer to your notes, as far as eye contact goes, always want to have eye contact during the introduction or when you introduce yourself and the judge. And on your last sentence, like the last thing you're going to say, like, thank you so much for your time. Like, I really hope that this plan works. You want to have eye contact. So start it with eye contact and end it with eye contact. And then throughout the middle, you can like briefly glance at your papers and things like that. And then you also want to answer all KPIs, since this is what you're being judged on. Make sure that you try to use the DECA method, even like just mentally, for each key performance indicator, so that the judge can like give you full points. And then for don't read off your paper and make the role play unnatural. You don't want it to make it sound like you're just like reading off of a script or something. Just let the words kind of flow, and with practice, you'll get better at it. But yeah, try to make it as like real as possible, because this is a role play. This is the meeting that you're having with the director of marketing. You really want to take on that role. And then another thing you don't want to do is answer the prompt without answering all the KPIs. So yeah, you just want to answer all of them. And then don't run through the role play without leaving time for the judge to ask questions. So for each role play, the judge has 2 set questions. So I would like leave about like a couple minutes at the end so they have time to answer these. But yeah, one time I like did a role play and they already said like time's up, but then like the judge let me go over. But do not do that. Make sure that you end it soon enough, and the proctor will like give you like time warnings even when you're presenting, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And then yeah, don't
time warning. So 1 minute before, 1 minute left, or 2 minute left.
I think there's like 5 minutes and 1 minute.
Yeah, so I think it's either 5 in 1 or 2 in 1.
I think it's
1 minute. I remember being
Yeah, I know there's definitely 1.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's 5 minutes as well.
Also, a note actually for preparation. So when you have your 10 minutes to prepare, like don't rely on the judge to on the proctor to give you time limits, because one time I think my proctor like forgot to do it or I didn't hear it. So I like had no idea the time. But if you're able to do a lot of practice, you'll kind of be able to gauge how much time you have left. So yeah, just try to like make your notes as fast as possible. You have a lot less time than you think. And then another thing you don't want to do is take long pauses to recollect your thoughts. This is just something that you'll get better with that practice. With practice and just doing a lot of practice scenarios, you'll be able to think quickly off your feet. And yeah. Okay, so moving on to how you can prepare. So this is just things that you can do outside of our workshops and our meetings to really take your role play skills to the next level. So the first is Competition University, and you'll be getting your login information for this soon. But they have some really great resources to help you learn about your industry. So for example, if you're doing principles of marketing, Competition University will have like a section where you can just learn all about marketing, and you can learn all about the industry today. Like what are some popular things to do? Things like that. And then for like hospitality, you can learn about like industry trends. So something really popular right now is like online travel agents or sustainability. And then you can also learn more about like the nitty-gritty topics. So like what is marketing, what is promotion, what is a target market, and things like that. And then another thing you could do to prepare is search up some sample scenarios online and practice them. So one thing you could search up is like sample principles of business administration DECA Roleplay. And then you'll see like, you'll have a bunch of like PDFs and you can like click on them and then practice. So one thing that I do is I have like a DECA folder. And so each sample scenario that I do, I like take my notes and then I like keep my notes so that, and I bring this to like every conference so I can like look at my past ideas that I've come up with and it's like easy to refer back to. So just whenever you do practice, make sure to keep those like your notes that you're taking. And then when I do my like practice scenarios, I like to like record myself on photo booth because I'm like more aware of how many like I'm saying, and like I can look back at them if I want to see how I do and how to prepare. So yeah, searching up sample scenarios online is super helpful. And then another way you can prepare is by watching practice role play videos. And now more than ever, you can find so many practice role plays since everything was virtual last year. So you just search up the role play that you're doing and like you could see like people's Zoom submissions. But those are for online, so it's kind of different with in person. But you can find a lot of practice role play videos. I know DECA has a YouTube channel and they like upload some. So it's really great to see how different people do their role plays and how they like structure it and how they like do their introductions and do their conclusions. Because at the end of the day, everyone does it differently. And with practice, you'll be able to have your own kind of way of doing your role play. And then another thing you could do is search up Quizlets with sample key performance indicators. So you could do that and then create a cheat sheet. So this is an example of a cheat sheet, which is a document to help you prepare for your role play. So it'll contain like important definitions, trends, industry challenges, companies doing things right, and all things like that. So here's what my cheat sheet looks like. Yeah, and if you have to leave right now, you can go ahead. Sorry, I turned it longer now. Yeah, this is what my cheat sheet kind of looks like. So you can refer back to the slides. Okay, and then I guess we can just quickly watch this video if you have time.
This video is a quick introduction to written events. Hey guys, this video is a quick introduction to written events. In this video, we're going to cover what a written is, the different kinds of written events you can compete in, and the presentation aspect of the event. So a written event is an individual or team event with teams up to 3 people that consist of a written document and a presentation of the document to the judges. The document is usually a business plan, sales pitch, or report of project activities, but that depends on which event you choose and the prompt that is given that year. The document is also written up before the conference and the presentation is done at the conference. So there are 4 different types of written events. There are entrepreneurship, operations research, project management, and integrated marketing campaign events. The entrepreneurship events provide opportunities to. All right, so at the conference, you have 15 minutes to pitch or present your idea or plan to your judge. And visual aids are highly recommended while presenting because they can be super powerful and impactful. The visual aids can be in the form of a PowerPoint presentation or a poster or even an item related to your project. You need to keep in mind that you have to leave 5 minutes out of the 15 minutes for judge questions. And this time is super important for the judge to clarify anything about your presentation or make any comments. It's also a good way for you to highlight anything important through answering your questions. Okay, so now that you
Okay, so in your written, basically one thing you're going to include is your executive summary. And this is something that will be graded for you at the mock conference. So your executive summary is just a summary of your entire report. So it's going to include your company description, kind of the scenario, and then the strategies that you're going to be using. And then, yeah, just a little bit more about the details of the written presentation. Slides are required, so you can use like Google Slides, PowerPoint, or Canva. And then you're also going to have to turn in your written report. It's basically like turning your written report into a more visual, appealing presentation. And then it's an 8-minute long presentation, and double check with the rubric to make sure you don't lose easy points because they have penalty points. So if certain things like you have too many pages or you don't do certain things, you're going to get dropped off. So it's important to take those into consideration. And then really quickly for visuals, it's really important to have visuals. You want to like have as few words as possible. So you can make infographics, charts, graphs, and diagrams. One thing you could do is a SWOT analysis. So just a little strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You can create like a competitive advantage chart. So these are just things that really help the judge stay focused and make your written stand out. So here you can like look at some of these examples. And then one really great resource to make graphics is Canva. So that's really helpful. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that, but yeah, you can make some really cool infographics. That being said, that is all we have today. Thank you guys for coming.